I call this committee meeting of the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission back to order. Chairman McMillan, back to the Wildlife Committee, Proclamation 1504.
Where are we at? Right here? Ms. Sweaney, are you ready to continue?
Here. I am, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it's good to be back. We will go on with the agency recommendations for our wildlife management areas. Just a kind of a little preface, we have, I think, maybe 114 areas. So about 80% of those are same as statewide, same as the statewide seasons. However, 20%, which seems like a lot when you're really going through them one by one, have special regulations, quota hunts, just things to either manage for a particular goal or to offset for the particularities of the area. So I'll go ahead and, well, let me double check. Oh, okay. I want to say there was a lot of course, all the calendar changes happened, and we're not going to go over the calendar changes. There was a lot of date shifting in order to kind of maximize hunter participation. So it wasn't necessarily a calendar change, but they just kind of moved things around, but nothing was lost or gained. And in one particular case, it was for the youth dove hunts. We moved the opening day. We recommend moving the opening day on a lot of WMAs so that it coincides with when the kids are out of school. So I'm not going to be going over those, but they are in your red line. Let's see here. And there's also a lot of changes that are made in the proclamation just for the sake of clarification. Just some housekeeping. When you go through a document, you know, there's always improvements that can be made, things that can be made more clear. So I'm not going to go over the clarifications either. But I would like to start off going over some recommended changes for areas that have quail. And these areas are in Region 2 and Region 4. And these areas recommend changing the dog training seasons for quail and rabbit. Also making reductions to the quail season, hunting season, and reductions to the rabbit hunting seasons. And all this is in an effort to boost the quail population growth on these areas. Are there any questions concerning this particular? Because next I'm going to move on to Region 1.
Just while we're on the subject of quail, and every time the word quail comes up, I guess, I look for Ron Crabtree in the audience. And Mr. Crabtree called me earlier in the week and apologized that he was not going to make this meeting. And he would promise to be at the May meeting in Nashville. So just wanted to pass that along because he's a champion of the quail across the state. So.
All right, thanks. Moving on to Region 1. Last year we made changes to a lot of Region 1 WMAs that installed some turkey quota hunts that were very conservative. And we're going to take those WMAs with those quota hunts we recommend on all these WMAs, changing to a non-quota hunt. The non-quota hunt we propose is a little bit more conservative than the statewide season. It lasts approximately 30 days. But moving from a conservative take to a more liberal take in these WMAs in Region 1.
I think that was a good move, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
So back to the Region 1 turkey hunts on these WMAs. There were a lot of WMAs that were open with the statewide season that were moved to the same quota hunt with the same length of days, same everything. And that's those. We recommend those going to that same non-quota hunt. Okay, on Pagoda and Thorny Cypress, they want to add opportunity and open days to the late waterfowl seasons that are open on those areas. We, Black Bayou Refuge, we recommend changing the turkey season to match the same season that it's on Reelfoot WMA. And that season is on Reelfoot is only open to the youth season. So on Black Bayou, which is small and very close to Reelfoot, recommend changing that from same as statewide to open with the youth season. On Camden and Reelfoot WMAs, we recommend adding some regulations to facilitate the wheelchair-bound blinds that are now there. On Tigret, we recommend adding a statement that restricts entry onto the WMA until 4 a.m. On Ernest Rice Sr. and Moss Island WMAs, we recommend reducing the number of days in their deer gun hunts in an effort to reduce the number of bucks harvested because those areas are very small. Sure.
The entry restrictions until 4 a.m.
On Tigret.
Just so that folks know.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you've just got some really super duper duck hunters who are getting there early.
I'm fine with the time, I just need some clarification.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question about
Sure.
a request for the Ernest Rice and Moss Island reducing the deer gun days. If next month the commission votes to cut the buck limit to 2, would you please consider adding those days back because that reduces the buck harvest?
Yes, sir.
Can we clarify that? I don't think everybody was paying attention. Can you restate that?
Well, she said the reason that we reduce the gun days is to cut the buck harvest on those 2 places. And I'm not sure, since I didn't ask for an explanation of that, I just said if you happen to cut the buck, if we do cut the buck limit, they ought to get their days back because that cuts the buck limit itself without having to reduce it on those areas.
Is there anyone that would like to address all the reasons for the reduction? Is it purely from a harvest issue, or is it other user groups, or I'm assuming there's other variables that led to that.
Jim Hamlington, the Wildlife Program Coordinator for Region 1, and it was originally it went till January 1st. It was 2 days. Excuse me. It was 2 weeks, 10 days, 11 days, 2 weeks, somewhere around in there. And Jason wanted to go 7 days after the 3rd Saturday in December, because they've got the 9-point and better, or the spike is what they've got. They've got limited number of buck. It's 1 deer, and there's a lot of people pile in there and hunt. They're small areas. They're very small, and they're islands amongst themselves. There's only trees around, and that's the reason he wanted to cut it back, for the hunting pressure on the deer that are there.
So there's already a reduced harvest. I mean,
Oh, yes,
you're only
yes.
allowed 1 buck on there.
Yes, yeah. It's already reduced. Just cutting a few days off, just because he felt there was too many people cramming in there hunting. There are some big deer there, and there's a lot of people that hunt them.
Well, I mean, is this
This is the gun hunt. They can bow hunt. They can still bow hunt. It's the gun day is what we're cutting back. They can still bow hunt.
Is that on account, was that on?
That's the area manager's. That's the area manager's feeling. That's his gut feeling. What it needs to be done.
Thanks, Jim.
Mr. Cox, do you want to recant your statement if it's already still just a 1 buck limit?
You know, I think we need to have a discussion at some point, maybe not now. I'll take what out of my request back, but, you know, I don't, to cut opportunity in some of these places just on a gut feeling gives me a little heartburn. You know, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of biology. I don't know what, and it could be, it just, I don't know, and it may be exactly what needs to be done, but, I don't like cutting days out of opportunity to hunt, so that's a discussion for perhaps another day.
All right, continue.
Okay, I'm going to move on to Region 2. We'd like to recommend changes on AEDC because the Air Force recommends changes on AEDC. And they'd like to reduce the turkey season, which is in Unit 1, which is the maneuvering area, is pretty much take it out. And there's one muzzleloader deer hunt that they want us to cut.
Can you brief us what,
Yeah.
being from East Tennessee, what AEDC is?
Oh, AEDC is it's a property that we get to do some management on, but the Air Force owns it. And so pretty much we're required with our agreement to work to do what as much as they will let us do.
Right. And I'll just, so they've essentially asked for this, so while we'll be changing this limit, they fully control what's
We're
going
not
to happen.
allowed
or
to
not.
say no.
Exactly, right,
Right.
so this is okay, thank you.
And to answer your question was they requested it, the reason that we're doing, making that change, right?
If you remember way back to the beginning of today's meeting, we're going to proclaim a new WMA, and we wanted to make some regulations for it. We propose opening up the small game and deer archery, deer muzzleloader, deer young sportsman, and the turkey young sportsman open with statewide seasons. And then have 3 deer gun hunts that are 3 days each, and 80 permits, so they're quota hunts, and 2 turkey quota hunts that are 4 days each, and with a quota of 50. Just knowing that it's a brand new area and 1,800 acres. On Laurel Hill, we'd like to change the regulations so that there's more opportunity to take coyote. And right now there's a antler restriction of 5, a minimum of 5 on one side. And that's creating a little confusion. It seems that it would be easier for a hunter to tell if there's 4.
So you're going to restrict it from 5 to 4?
On one side, yes.
On one side?
On one side.
I have a question about that, if you don't mind. What was the purpose of limiting it to 5 on one side?
Can I defer to Region 2 on that?
before my tenure originally, they went to antler restrictions at Laurel Hill due to increased pressure from out-of-state hunters, was one reason, along with, of course, trying to create quality deer hunting in that area. We're just going down to 4 because they're having a lot of people coming in and finding deer on the ground where they've been ground checked, where they didn't have the 5 points on one side. There is also a spread restriction of 15 inches. And so we're hoping that this will alleviate some of that, but still retain some of the quality antler. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Why did we pick this one area to have antler restrictions? Who made that decision?
That was before my tenure. George Buttry was in my place then. That was over probably, I've been here 4 years now, so.
Alan, do you know?
Were the people coming from out of state because the deer were bigger?
No, they weren't coming because they were bigger. It was just an opportunity across the state line. It wasn't far from Alabama, and we were getting an influx of people from Alabama coming up. It was it's an older management area, has a lot of tradition with hunting, and people used to come up, and whatever Alan can add.
I think we put the Laurel Hill regulations on about the same time we did President's Island, and we made our recommendation for the 9-point spike rule on President's Island, and George felt that I think it started out as 4, wasn't it?
No, it started out as 9 and 1.
Oh, well, that's right.
Or 9
And then they've sort of changed it over the, but he felt it was a good place that might be able to grow some decent deer. The habitat was good and all that sort of thing. But
And
it was
how's
about
that
the same
work?
time. Pardon me?
How's that worked?
I'll leave that to you, Cap.
Wait, I'm gonna ask you something else.
Laurel Hill is an area, it's 14,000 acres, so it's not very large. We were hit real hard with EHD back in 2007, and we haven't completely recovered. We have seen more older age bucks there, but we're not producing what you would call Boone and Crockett bucks. But our participation is not what it used to be. We have a much lower participation. There are some quota hunts that we don't even fill. So,
Have you got any way to find out if the hunters like what is going on there, or would they prefer just to take the restrictions off?
well, we have talked about that, and that's another reason, you know, we're becoming a little more lenient right now, but the manager she talks to all the hunters that are there and kind of gets a feel for what they're wanting, and there's still a lot of them that like the antler restrictions, but there is also a contingency that would rather see them go. We can do a survey at some point.
I guess my point, and Alan, I was gonna ask you over at Tully what the restrictions are, but the reason it was 9 points is because to limit it to an older deer than a 1 or 2 year old deer, because typically 8 point could be 2 years old, but a typical 9 was an older deer. So if you're trying to affect antler change and you do it to 4, you're kind of defeating the purpose of having any, it seems to me. So I just wonder if
It's just making it easier for the hunters to see 4 points instead of 5 for number one. Like I said, we're having a little bit of wanton waste for hunters, it's a split second decision where they're having to look to find that 5th point on that one side and have a 15-inch spread all at the same time, put that deer on the ground, and them not bringing it to the check station because they don't have that 1 point on that side. So we're just trying to alleviate some of that while still providing a little bit of quality.
We have a lot of WMAs with restrictions like this. How is it different? We have some WMAs,
some.
correct? And they're very desirable places to hunt because of the deer that are coming out. Is this area just totally dissimilar to those as far as the herd or the genetics or the soil? I mean, it kind of sounds like we're having trouble from an enforcement standpoint, so we're, making a change there because, we're finding deer or people that are poaching or killing illegally and not checking, so.
Well, they're not
I don't know
killing
how
them
this will-
illegally as much as they're on the hunt, and like I said, they're having to make that split second decision, and people don't want to bring them into the check station.
But it's illegal to shoot a buck and not check it. Right.
It is.
Okay.
but that's part of the reason it's 5, so they have to take the time to look at it. So that kind of what you're
Asked to speak.
from the Mississippi River to the mountains of East Tennessee, it's different stuff all the way across. And if you want to set restrictions, you need to know the area you're setting the restrictions. The reason we went with the 9-point rule in the Mississippi River counties, or WMAs, President's Island, Tully, Moss Island, Ernest Rice, is the data that I had for years and years and years showed it was at a year and a half, 2.5, you didn't grow a 9th point. 3.5, they'd start growing a 9th point once in a while. So we knew we could absolutely protect the yearlings in the 2.5s on those areas. We had the data to show that. George's data for his Laurel Hill area, he set regulations based on the data he had. I would not recommend to anybody in any other region, in any other WMA, to go with a 9-point rule because we've done it in West Tennessee. Don't do that. They're all different. You need to look at the data for your particular area and do what the data tells you to do on your area. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I understand what you're saying, I just wonder if the goal, if the original goal was 5 points to grow better deer, and like Commissioner Teague said, if that's the goal, then because they can't catch these guys that are violating by leaving deer on the ground and going back to 4s, defeating the purpose, you might as well just do away with it. So I'm just wondering if it's.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Can I,
I was around then.
You've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's an NFL man.
Yeah.
Not for long.
Thanks for those kind words. But all of that took place at a time when the agency was trying to provide quality deer management across the state, so every region was asked to identify a place where we could try to take up the quality of the bucks by antler restrictions. President's Island, Natchez Trace. We picked what we thought might have an opportunity to produce some better quality bucks. Laurel Hill is predominantly forested, cherty soils, probably not the best place to have tried this. I think if we took a really hard look on the data in general, we'd probably back off altogether, I would suspect, because I don't think it's producing what we thought it would. Now, that's not to say that it's not popular. Natchez Trace was popular, and it was, well, it was a failure, just to be blunt. So
Steve's being kind. It was a miserable failure.
but it was, these were all attempts to try to provide a better quality animal than what we had been doing, and you know, in some places it's worked. But, you know, most of the land that we have for a reason, and it's because it wasn't fit for anything else.
on a place like President's Island, and you put I guess I'm right in assuming that President's Island is 9 points or better, right? Well, if you do that, do you not after a while reach a point where you have a tremendous amount of 6 and 7 year old 8 points, and you're kind of defeating the purpose? Do you see what I'm saying? Is that not what happens? Because you're killing all your deer that have the potential to go to 9 or better, but a lot of deer that are aged are still going to stay as 8 point. Am I wrong on that?
A little bit, but go ahead. I'd like to speak too, but.
I've had this discussion several times with Dr. Kennedy, University of Memphis, knows as much about deer as anybody in the state of Tennessee, and that comes up a lot. People say you're just going to end up with a bunch of old 8 points, and every time I've ever mentioned it to Dr. Kennedy, he just laughed. It's every year the deer's antlers fall off and he grows new ones, and next year he may be a 10 point. Next year he may be a 6 point. Next year he may be an 11 point. they may grow a sticker here or a little sticker there. As long as it's an inch, it counts as a point. He may grow an odd one over here. So just because he's an 8-point, he's not going to necessarily be an 8-point his whole life. Just like the people used to say, once a spike, always a spike. Well, that's nonsense too. Every year they're going to grow a new set of antlers. And just because they're an 8-point this year doesn't mean they're going to be an 8-point and not grow a sticker on an antler next year.
I don't know who's up. Go ahead. Maybe Trey. How many WMAs do we have that have antler restrictions around the state?
We have one. There's 1 and 3. 2. You have 2.
We have 4 in Region 1.
4 in 1.
1 and 2.
1 in 2.
2 and 3.
0 and 4.
0 and 4.
You got
Two,
7.
now
We just
two-
hope we have points.
7.
Two of the areas in Region 1 are really small. Moss Island and Ernest Rice are 3,000 acre areas. They're small. Tully's pretty good size, and they're killing some really good bucks off of Tully. I shouldn't have said that on videotape.
No, you should have not have said that. No, I'm kidding.
The locals don't like it being broadcast, but there's some big bucks on Tully that are coming off of there.
Mr. Chairman, coming back to Laurel Hill, what I'm hearing is, and Steve, correct me if I've misunderstood you, we tried something that we thought would help. The circumstances specifically at Laurel Hill is kind of like the render-seller thing, fitting it, that circumstance. It wasn't appropriate for that circumstance, and we're saying it, we're admitting it, and we're taking corrective action to it. Is that a fair summation? Yes. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and I just let you know, that's the last of the recommendations for Region 2. In Region 3, at Bridgestone Firestone, we recommend allowing the non-hunters to come in after noon during the turkey hunts. The manager there states that most turkey hunters are done by noon, and there's a lot of outdoor recreationists. On Catoosa, we recommend a reduction to the deer bag. Grab my note.
Kurt, why are you reducing the bag limit?
We recommend reducing the bag limit from 2 to 1, and we recommend doing that because the deer herd there, they're just not seeing the deer they used to. So we recommend providing a boost to that population.
Question. Is there a? All
Kirk
right.
Miles, Wildlife Program Manager, Region 3.
There you go. My memory serves me, the biologist at TWRA tell me taking males out of the herd is not going to affect the size of the herd.
I would agree with that.
Okay, then how is reducing the deer bag limit of bucks going to help
I
get more deer?
think
out there?
it's, we're going, correct me if I'm wrong, Joy. We're going from 2 deer either sex to 1 deer either sex. Is that correct? So they could still take it's either sex. We're reducing the bag limit from 2, 2 either sex to 1 either sex. So they could still be taking the does.
So you would consider 2 bucks and 1 doe.
Yes, sir? Yeah, I imagine you could do that. Is that a recommendation?
Now, if we change the buck limit to 2, it would be.
Okay. I understand that.
I just think it's,
I understand where you're coming from.
yeah.
The best way to increase your herd overall would be to not kill any bugs.
Not kill any does.
Yes, does would
Not shoot any
be what I would
does.
focus on.
I meant does.
And that's what we're really trying to do here is, we're really trying to reduce our antlerless harvest, even though it's either sex.
I would think if it was one either sex, you would drastically reduce the doe harvest. Because
I
they're
think
probably
what
gonna
Mi-
shoot
Yeah.
a buck.
I think what Mr. Cox is saying is if we do move to a 2-buck limit, to change that restriction to 2 deer, of which only one could be antlerless.
Right. Keep in mind that on Catoosa and on most wildlife management areas, the antlered deer that are harvested are bonus deer. So they're deer that are above and beyond the statewide bag limit. So, does that make sense? Okay. So, for a hunter coming to a wildlife management area, actually, if you think about it, if you reduce the statewide bag limit, you might increase the desire to hunt a wildlife management area and take a bonus antlered deer. So that's the case on a lot of wildlife management areas.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll move on. We have some recommendations for South Cherokee. We recommend opening up squirrel hunting outside the bear reserves during the bear dog hunts, and also from January 2nd to February 29th. And that's just to add more opportunity where we see it can fit.
Did you say during bear season, outside the reserve? Did you say during bear season, outside the reserves? Is that what you said?
I believe so. Outside of the bear reserves during the bear dog hunts.
Okay, thank you.
During the deer archery hunt, we recommend allowing a bear to be taken. We also recommend opening the bear reserves to big game hunting, except for during the bear dog hunts. And then we talked about earlier, when we talked about the big game proclamation and bear, where we moved the bear training in the bear zone 3. We did that, we recommend that because that's what the U.S. Forest Service recommends we do to avoid that Labor Day conflict on South Cherokee. Any questions?
Any questions for her on South Cherokee? No, go ahead, move on.
Okay. Oh, Cordell Hall and Edgar Evans State Park, we recommend adding some more opportunity to take deer. On Cordell Hall, we recommend adding 9 days, and on Edgar Evans, add a 2-day deer archery hunt. And just for clarification, that state park kind of opens up this hunt, recommends that we open up this hunt every 2 to 3 years. So it's something that's happened in the past. On Enterprise South Nature Park, there's a quota hunt that has 80 permits. We recommend replacing that with a quota hunt that has 15 permits, but it's specifically for Purple Heart veterans. And that's to reduce hunting pressure on that area.
I've got a question on the Enterprise South hunt. What is the rationale about asking them to have a Purple Heart? Because post-traumatic stress disorder is just as much a debilitating thing as someone who's lost a limb.
My name is Ben Layton. I'm the Region 3 big game biologist. Commissioner Swan, basically what we're trying to do on the old strategy or the old hunt scenario where we were getting hunters out of Fort Campbell, out of their HUA program from there, and a lot of those are, and HUA stands for Healing Outside of Hospital, basically. Several of those soldiers or those participants in those hunts were ones that were not combat wounded. They were had injuries, but those injuries may come from something as simple as a car wreck on the base. So they were, our thinking is let's give actual veterans, the people that have, been serving our country and actually were combat wounded, an opportunity to come and participate in these hunts.
How can we include the warriors who have post-traumatic stress disorder?
I don't really, can we exclude them? Is that what?
No, how can we include them?
Our criteria that we were looking at using on this was when a person is wounded in combat, they're of course given a Purple Heart designation on, I think it's a DD-214 form. And we were going to use that form, so I can't really answer your question in knowing how post-traumatic stress syndrome would fit under that. I don't assume that they would be given a Purple Heart for a post.
No, they probably wouldn't, but the only reason I bring that up is last year after the hunt, we had one of the soldiers write one of our guides. He sat in the ground blind with him and thanked him for those 2 days in the blind and told how it changed his life, that he was contemplating a suicide and it was the first time he'd been able to talk about his experiences in battle, and that he felt a lot better about that. And I just hate to exclude those type of people, to give them the opportunity to be out there, because emotionally they're just as disabled as someone who's lost a limb.
Well, I guess.
I don't know how you would identify them, except that I'm sure that the military has a way of identifying those people. I know that the VA does, because they receive benefits just like someone who's lost a limb.
Yeah, I don't see a problem including them, but we would have to have a way to screen those in case, what we're planning on with the Purple Heart veterans is they have to have this DD-214 form that shows that they're a Purple Heart. If we could get a similar documentation from the VA or whoever when we receive these applications coming in, where we can just make sure that, we're giving those hunt slots to the people, the hunters that, you decide that needs to happen.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I mean,
make a suggestion?
if we can, get something from the VA, I think that would be good.
Commissioner Kent has a suggestion.
I really do applaud what you're doing, what you're doing for our veterans who've been wounded, what y'all have been proactive on the wheelchair-bound folks. I really do applaud that. I think the question is a fair one. Is there a chance you all could research by our next commission meeting to see if there's a formal designation from the VA that may give you all a level of comfort and answer the question here? Would that be okay?
Oh, that would be fine, because our main criteria is being able to give those hunts to the people that deserve it. And we don't want to, like I said, this whole topic came up of change to Purple Heart veterans was to give the hunt to the people that are really deserving of it.
It's we're all about that. That, and I think Commissioner's point is we want to make sure we haven't unintentionally excluded a group that is equally as injured, and there may be some designation or some form that may give you all the comfort to achieve what you're trying to achieve in the end. If y'all wouldn't mind checking into that, that would be great.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, I think in Ben, and probably ought to look at combat-related disability and check with the VA on that. That should get, combat-related disability should
I think that's the spirit of what y'all are trying to achieve
We
here.
already have the disabled veteran license. We also tried to look at that, and maybe only limited to that pool. We've already given them, they've gone through the process of getting a disabled veteran's license.
It won't capture what Commissioner Swan's talking about though on that license. So we can give that some more thought. Make sure we capture that.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. Let's move on.
Okay. On Hiawassee Refuge, we recommend dropping a low participation dove hunt and adding a rabbit hunt. On the dove hunt, it's been none to slim on the dove hunt. And then the rabbit hunt is just opportunity that we see would fit. It's an opportunity to take rabbit with a conservative bag since it's a new season. You want to speak on that, Ben?
Yeah, let me make a clarification. We're not dropping a dove hunt. The dove hunt is still there. We had tried an experiment last year where we added there's only 3 days of hunting on this Hiwassee Refuge for adults for dove hunting. We added a day during the week in a trial to see if we could get greater hunter participation, and we did not. That was a failure, so we're just withdrawing that day back. Just that day. There's still dove hunting going on in the WMA, but instead of having 3 days of hunting, we're going to have 2, and the day we're removing is a weekday with low hunter participation.
Thanks, Ben. On Mount Roosevelt, part of the WMA lies within a bear hunt zone, and the rest of it doesn't. That part of the WMA that lies within the bear zone is very small, and it creates confusion. So we recommend taking that little tiny opportunity out just to alleviate confusion. On Prentice Cooper State Forest, we recommend increasing the turkey bag from 1 turkey per hunt to 1 turkey per day. There's just not a lot of pressure, and we've had some requests for that, and it makes sense. On Tellico Lake, we recommend increasing the deer bag limit from 1 to 2 and adding 2 young sportsman turkey quota hunts. There was a rabbit squirrel hunt that we recommend dropping because nobody showed up. And that was in the McGee-Carson unit. And that's it for Tellico Lake and Region 3 if there are any questions.